Get your hot coffee here. Get your hot coffee. Got the hot coffee right here. No, we ain't got no beer. No, we ain't got no hot dogs. Get your hot coffee.
Play ball.
Hot coffee.
1, 3.
Welcome to the Coffee Club, broadcasting live from New York with your host, Felix, and co-host, Dr. Mark. So let's have a cup of coffee and enjoy the show.
There is no heaven. There is no hell. There is only this world and its dark reflection. And we do not know in which of the two worlds we are.
Live. I said we are live from New York. And I'm your host, Felix.
And I'm Dr. Mark.
And you are listening to the Coffee Club. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's opening day all over the country. Baseball season is starting. The batters are up. Does anybody really care anymore?
Well,
I guess not.
that's what we're going to find out today.
I guess one person said no, huh?
Well, you know what they say about springtime. In springtime, a young man's fancy turns to love and baseball. Okay? We at the Coffee Club want to hear your opinions about that. After all, over the past number of years, and Felix will bear me out on this, football, basketball, in fact, right now, basketball, we're in the middle of March Madness, the Final Four. Hockey is winding down, getting ready for the playoffs to go for the Stanley Cup. Pretty soon, basketball is going to be winding down, go for the playoffs as well. This is the one time when baseball has to share all the airtime with many of the other sports, and what we want to know is, do you think baseball is still America's pastime?
Yes, when the other things are over. Till then, I don't think so.
All right, if you had to pick a sport, Felix, which would you pick and say that that's probably become the new America's pastime?
I'm thinking football.
So would I. Football seems to have such a hype, because even though the football season is only 16 games long, you still have preseason, which is 4 games, so that makes it 20. And if you make it to the playoffs, you have 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 more games. Baseball, you're talking about a schedule of 162 games. After a while, I mean, it can get to be, I think, pretty boring. In football, there's always a lot of action. In hockey, there's always a lot of action. In basketball, they're running up and down the court. Okay, there's action. Baseball, the guys are standing in one place waiting for somebody to hit the ball to them.
Yeah, even soccer, lots of action.
That's true.
And it's getting more popular.
More and more, that's very true.
And as other sports become more popular and occupy more of the airtime, less of the airtime will be given to baseball, because there's too much. They're probably going to start winding down and turning the seasons a little shorter, I think.
I don't know if they'll make it shorter, but I can't see them making it any longer. It's been so long since they've added new teams to baseball.
Yeah.
I don't know where, other than, well, there are some areas in in Middle America where they could probably support a professional baseball team. But still, to add any more games to a schedule that's already loaded, I mean, they play, I believe, barring weather, they play 24 preseason games. Add that to the 162, and you're talking about over 180 games already, 186. And then if you make it into the baseball playoffs in the World Series, you're going well over 200 games.
When there was less popular sports, that was okay. But, other sports have become, more popular. Football starts before baseball is over.
Well, that's always been that way, though. Football always begins toward the end of July. They have the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. So they pick two teams, and they say you're going to be playing in the first preseason game, and it's going to be in Canton, Ohio, to honor the Hall of Famers who were nominated and elected into the Football Hall of Fame. And then in August, they really begin, like the second week in August, playing preseason games. And as I said, they play 4. They usually play 3 in August and 1 in September, and then they start the season.
Yeah. Got a question for you. In baseball, how many times does each team play each other? Do you know? Roughly?
If they're in the same division, it used to be 18 times. Now, the East Coast teams do not play the West Coast teams 18 times. That is drastically reduced. But take Baltimore, Boston, the Yankees, Tampa Bay. Those teams basically play 18 times they meet each other.
Well, they should cut it down to maybe in half.
Well, I believe that then some of the other teams in Middle America, okay, I think the Mets play the St. Louis Cardinals 9 times. So St. Louis is pretty much, they call St. Louis the gateway to the West. So, but I mean, I don't think the Mets play the Giants or the Dodgers very many games. I think maybe they play them 9 games as well, because the Mets will play against the East Coast teams 18 times.
Yeah, I really think they could cut it down and make those double headers just a single game. Condense the schedule a little bit.
Well,
so it doesn't overlap the other sports. I think they'll do better.
Well, I remember as a kid, and you might remember too. I mean, I used to go with my dad on Sundays. That's when they used to have a double header, and the games would begin around 1:00. And that was when I was able to sit on those hard benches, on those hard seats, for 2 games. They would have one game, then there would be about a half-hour intermission, and then they would start a second game. I mean, it was great. I used to love it because, let's face it, you're seeing 2 games for the price of 1. It's like going to the movies when we were kids and seeing a double feature and cartoons in the middle. But now everything is money. And if they do have a doubleheader, it's usually a day and night game, and it's separate admission, and they usually do that when there's a rainout date.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, they definitely, I think, could cut down and condense the season a little bit so they don't interfere with the other sports as much. And they'll probably get a better overall audience and participation on TV. I mean, that's where the money is, the TV.
Well, that's always been true. That's always been true. I know as far as my brother-in-law is concerned, he's still a big baseball fan. He enjoys football and basketball. He follows Syracuse because that's his alma mater. And Syracuse usually does pretty well in basketball, but he's a baseball fan. And then you have some people who were turned off. I know a lot of people were turned off when the Dodgers and Giants moved from New York to the West Coast. Mm-hmm. Sports took a big hit in the National League then. But as much as I like the Yankees and follow the Yankees, I really think, like you said, I think football is becoming the America's pastime.
Yeah. And I don't watch football at all. I just don't like it. I just won't watch it. I just have I understand the game, but I have no real love or interest for it. I like basketball.
I can pass on basketball, you see.
See, everybody's got
You know,
I like basketball. I could pass on hockey. I know you like hockey.
I like hockey.
Well, I don't know if you like it, but some plays it. So
Well, no, I tell you, I took more of an interest when he played, you know. But I still like to see the Rangers play, watching them. And I probably, might watch an interesting hockey game as opposed to a baseball game. I don't watch the Mets because I feel it's cheating on the Yankees, So I'm a big even though they're in New York, I am a big Yankee fan. And the Yankees actually play tomorrow night, in fact. They don't even play a day game. It's a night game. Opening day used to be just that, opening day. Most of the teams played during the day, and then they would have the next day off, But talk about Yankees. Pretty much the no-name Yankees this year. I mean, you really... And the lousy thing is they don't have their names on the back of their jerseys, so you really need a scorecard to be able to tell who's who.
who's who? Yeah.
You got Teixeira, you got Jeter and Gardner, but they have new players at many of the positions. And if you're not familiar with the numbers, you don't know who the heck is in the field or coming up to bat.
And I'll take it even further. I don't care who's coming to bat. But I'll tell you, I guess, you grew up with hockey because of your son. I grew up in soccer and basketball because I coached my son in soccer and basketball right through high school. So those are the sports that I
Well, actually, I have to say, when we moved out to the island and the boys got a little older, soccer was always big out here. So I used to be an assistant coach. I used to write a blurb for the local newspaper after the game, about who scored and how the game was, But I would do that. Then as he got into ice hockey, I helped out. But basketball, no. He tried basketball for one season, didn't like it. He tried lacrosse for one season, he didn't like it. We wouldn't let him play football because in all honesty, I don't think amateur football is really that safe. I don't think they have enough protection, in the helmets. I don't think they have enough protection in the shoulder pads and everything. Which I know somebody may say is strange because, you let them play hockey and there are a lot of hits in hockey. But football to me seems too dangerous.
I don't know. I see more teeth being knocked out in hockey than any other sport.
Well, we got him a real good mouthpiece, I'll tell you. It cost us extra bucks. We would have it made up, molded for him. But Josh broke his collarbone playing hockey. He was going after a puck in the boards, and some big bruiser who had to outweigh him by 100 pounds put a hit on him and knocked him into the boards. And Josh hardly ever takes himself out, but he took himself out of the game, all right? And the next day we took him to the hospital, had it x-rayed, and he broke his collarbone.
How long was he out for?
Well, he quite a few weeks he didn't play, But in the old days they used to put a cast on it, and then they didn't do anything. They set it or did something to it. I really don't remember, But I know Ellen, my wife, loves hockey, and she would get upset when he would be hit, and I would turn to her and say, well, "What do you expect? It's hockey.
Yeah.
You expect it in hockey." But this hit that the kid put on him was not a clean hit at all. But according to the ref, it was, Josh was going after the puck. He had his back turned to him, so it would have been called boarding now. And the guy probably would have been thrown out of the game, So, what can I tell you?
Well,
But I will say, though, that I know your son played on a traveling soccer team, and it took him all over the island and everything, and to other states. Josh, didn't play traveling hockey, but hockey took him to Montreal, Sweden, and Finland. So I mean, he's been to more places in his 27 years than I have.
Well, all our kids have been around more.
The only place I ever went, Felix, and you'll appreciate this, was Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Well, so I went there too on vacation, but I spent more time there than you.
That's true. I got a medical discharge.
I would have, but they didn't want to let me go.
I got hit in the head too much. That's what it was.
No, I was sick for a while there, but they wouldn't do anything with me because we were going for company, what do they used to call it? Some company award, and they couldn't afford to have anybody flunk out, as they say. So they pushed me through.
Well, what they used to do was rate the recruits, every company, and if you had the best company out of the recruits.
Yeah, that was a big thing. So, and my company won. So that's all they care.
No thanks to you, huh?
No thanks to me, and they didn't care. They didn't care if I couldn't shoot a gun or anything. All they cared about is being tough. They said, "You're a National Guards guy. We don't care what you know. You're going back home. You're never going to do anything."
It's true.
That was then. Now it's a lot different.
Yes, it is. Because nowadays, National Guard and reservists go overseas. And unfortunately, I still say that they're really not ready.
Well, listen, if I got trained the way I was supposed to, and when I lost about 3 weeks or so or more of training when I was in the hospital, now mind you, that's a lot of training.
Yeah, when you talk about 6 weeks for basic, 3 weeks is almost it's half the time.
Half my basic. Never fired an M16 in my basic. Never did the 26-mile march. Never did any of that stuff.
Boy, are you lucky.
Well, you never.
Oh, for that matter, myself as well. I remember.
Yeah. Somehow I managed to pass the 2 PT tests that I had. Don't even know how, because the first one was before I got sick, and the second one was after I got sick, and the guy scared me.
Wait a second. I hear Barbra Streisand singing, "Memories may be beautiful and yet." Oh, well. But that truly was the way we were.
Yeah, but...
Now it takes you how long to get up from your rocking chair?
Like an old 6-minute mile takes me that long.
You got to be careful because this thing has rollers on it. It'll kick out underneath you. You'll wind up falling on your behind,
Well, it's big enough to protect me.
Well,
it used to be anyway. Now probably even as big, still big. It's not as protective. Your bones are more brittle.
But ladies and gentlemen, as we always do, we are straying. Our topic is.
Oh, wait a second!
Is baseball?
We forgot to put on the chat room. Ladies and gentlemen,
maybe we'll get
the chat room is now
officially open.
And the other thing we didn't do is we didn't mention our phone number. Our phone number is 646-595-3275. That's 646-595-3275.
I wish we could say that that's the reason we haven't gotten a call, but we know that's not true.
We could use an excuse tonight anyway.
But for
all the listeners who are out there, I want to welcome you to our show, and I hope you're enjoying it. And feel free to sign on to our chat room, and feel free to
give us your opinion.
Give us your opinion. You can give us a call and give us your opinion. And if you call us and say you don't like us, that's your opinion. That's okay. We don't care.
Well, we could do what some of those old radio jocks used to do. When somebody started to complain, they would just cut them off without even saying goodbye.
Nah, we're not going to do that because we're not going to get a call after that.
You remember, not Robert Downey Jr., but there was a guy named Robert Downey. He used to be on Saturday night, and he had a pretty big show. And if he felt that you were not expressing yourself well, or you didn't agree with what he was saying, he would just cut you off and embarrass you.
Oh, a lot of them do that. I mean, that's the power of the microphone.
Yeah, we're kind, because we don't care how stupid they say we are. We know we are stupid,
And
so...
we're kind. We'll take anybody's call. We really don't care what you talk about.
And that's true, too. What was it I used to say, Felix? A show about...
Nothing?
That's right.
No, it's always a show about something.
Well, yeah,
It's the
depending
same-
upon what they want to talk about.
We start off talking about one thing, but we'll wind up, varying, going to the various topics. That's because Mark and I come very well prepared for these shows. We have at least...
We have a staff, don't we?
We have a staff, and we have all these, what are the cue cards in front of us to read everything. You think this is ad-libbing? We're reading this.
That's right. We have statistics, folks.
If I close my eyes, you wouldn't hear me say anything because I wouldn't know what to say.
That's very true. But please give us a call. We do want to hear from you. Look, whether you like baseball or not, even if you don't like it, give us a call and tell us why. If you think that one of the other sports is more interesting to watch, well, give us a call.
I think baseball is boring, actually, to me. I mean, baseball, I'll tell you, I will watch the World Series sometimes, but that's as far as I'll go with that. Matter of fact, that's as far as I'll go with any of the sports.
Well,
Football, forget about.
Oh, and
Super
I
Bowl.
love football.
Super Bowl, I have no interest. I don't even know who's playing most of the time.
Well, let's face it, if it's not a New York team or if you favor a different team, if it's not a favorite of yours, you're not going to watch it.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah. Basketball, I'll watch games if they're on. And if one of the teams, from New York will actually make it pretty far, I'll be excited and watch it. But luckily, I haven't had the opportunity.
Well, I will tell you that, as I've said, I really don't care for basketball that much, but I did watch the Sweet 16, this past weekend. And, no, the final, what did they call it? The Sweet 16, then they have something with 8. I forgot what they call it, but I watch that, and I will watch the final.
Final four?
4, yes.
Yeah, I tell you, I really don't watch college basketball.
It was amazing. Most of the games were relatively close up until the end. It could have gone into overtime, 5-minute overtime.
I'll tell you, the only time I really watch college basketball, if for some reason on one of the odd channels my losing LIU team is on, then I'll watch them. But that's about it. That's the only time I'll watch.
Well, I understand. Well, if you have some money bet on it,
I have no money. Who
has money to bet? It's
would
true.
bet on LIU? Come on, you'd bet on them to lose. That's a pretty much of a sure bet. No, they usually come out with a...
LIU did, though, make it to, I think they got an invite this year to the 64, to the big dance.
Did they?
Yeah, they were knocked out right away, I believe. LIU usually is in the NIT, the National
They haven't
Invitational.
been in NIT for the last few years, from what I remember. They haven't been in anything. They're just, they used to be a powerhouse in the 50s, I guess.
That's true.
But, there used to be a time where a city college, which is a city school, New York City, college, and that was a powerhouse.
City College was the last team to win the NIT and the NCAA back in the 40s. That's how great they were. And then there was a big scandal, and they were banned from participation for a while. You were talking the other day about shaving points.
Yeah, LIU did that. They used to take a lead of 30 points, and then all of a sudden they're only ahead by 2, and the spread was 3. So, you know what they were doing.
Very true. It's kind of hard to do that in baseball. Yeah. I will say, though, the hardest working person in baseball is the pitcher because he's always in motion. That's why they limit the pitchers. They don't want them. In the old days, there were so many complete games, I remember. Whitey Ford, most of the Yankee pitchers would pitch complete games. Nowadays, it's rare to have a pitcher go Well, in the American League. In the National League, they still go longer than most American League pitchers. But American League, the pitcher will, if you have a pitcher that will give you 6 good innings, usually you have a middle guy come in to pitch the 7th and possibly the 8th, and then you have your closer come in. Okay, if it's a close game, you have your closer come in. Okay, and that's it.
I really don't like that. I liked it when pitches lasted for a while. I will tell you that, where they start going and you hear towards
Yeah, but that's
end.
what, and you know what's surprising? Back in the day, and we can say back in the day because that's how it was, these pitchers wound up pitching for 20 seasons. Nowadays, it's so rare to find any baseball player playing for 20 seasons, especially with the same team, because now with the advent of free agency, most of them go where the money is. And let's face it, what they want to do is go to a team where they stand a chance to maybe get into the playoffs in the World Series.
That's true. But, also, in the old days when, you pitched 9 innings, somebody got a no-hitter or a perfect game, you really don't get too many of those any longer because players don't play that long, like you said.
Well, and then, I think it was last year. I don't remember his name. I think it was last year. You had a pitcher pitching a perfect game going into the last batter, and the umpire miscalled a strike for ball 4, and he wound up walking the guy, and everybody was up in arms, and that was one of the reasons that they have instituted this year, believe it or not, instant replay in baseball.
Oh, my heavens.
So it may take a little bit longer, but this way at least they'll get the calls correct. If it's a close call,
But, that's a lot of it is judgment no matter what. Even if it's a
Well,
close
the strike zone is always a judgment call. You're given a guideline. It's from the knees to the letters on the jersey. Okay. Some umpires have a much smaller strike zone. Some umpires will call some of the inside pitches if they're close a strike. It also depends upon the batter. If you have a star up there like Ortiz, David Ortiz from the Red Sox, he'll get the benefit of a call. But if you have a young kid up there, all right, that same pitch might be called a strike as opposed to a ball. So the only thing you can hope for is that an umpire is consistent in the way he calls the game.
Yeah, the whole game, yeah. Because some players crouch more, and maybe
Yeah, the strike zone is narrowed by the crouching,
then you have a guy who's 6'6". I don't know if there are any, but
and the bat. Well, there are a couple, and usually they're pitchers, and the bat looks like a toothpick in their hands. It really does. It looks so small.
Okay, time for somebody to call in.
Well, let me see. I don't have my reading glasses.
There's nobody calling in. There's nobody in the chat room right now.
Well, we've given these people 30 good minutes of our airtime so far. Short of repeating ourselves, and we hate to do that.
Well, I guess we do at that. This show has been known to go back to the same topic over and over at times.
Well, what really hurts, Felix? What really hurts is, I know you were joking about preparation. The bottom line is, do we prepare a lot? No. In all honesty, we really don't. Other than type up what the show's about, and Felix and I might discuss it, the day we're going to be going live from New York. But the fact that I don't think anybody really appreciates, what goes into a show and how much better it would be even if you felt the complete opposite from what we're saying. Even in politics, I know that there are a lot of people out there who don't agree with what I have to say. That's what makes the show interesting.
You make the Tea Party look like a liberal.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that, but, gee.
I think this guy over here sitting next to me is as far left of the Tea Party as you can go.
I guess without being called a socialist, as the Republicans love to call President Obama, you know.
Well, we're all socialists in a certain way.
By the way, talking about President Obama, today's March 31st. You know what that is?
Yeah, that means Obamacare, we can stop talking about it.
Well, it's officially. Now, unofficially, what they've done is that and this works on the honor system, if you have made a concerted effort to get onto and complete your application process, they give you 2 to 3 more weeks. You have to go online and simply say that you've tried, but you haven't been able to, and they'll grant you another 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But who's to say they're not going to postpone it again?
Yeah, well, my son today made a gallant attempt to finally sign up for Obamacare. He's 27 years old, and so there's a minus 30 plan it's a catastrophe plan, and it's a $6,500 deductible or more. Basically, except for two doctor visits, you have to spend $6,500 before they pay anything.
Wow. But he can change his plan annually.
Annually. So he wants to know if he can get a plan like we had last year from his job. They said, no, they abolished those. He goes, well, how much is a plan like that now if you want to get some comparison?
I don't think it's even offered.
It's not offered. The plan that we had was under $400 a person a month. Okay? The platinum plan, that's like $500-600, doesn't come close to it. They've completely revamped the system and made everything basically more expensive, except you can get a free colonoscopy, you can have a gym, and if I have a baby, I'm covered.
Well, you're not going to have a baby, and your son is not going to have a colonoscopy at 27, so both of those things wouldn't interest him.
Yeah.
Joining a gym would interest him.
Yeah, he belongs to a gym. They give you $200 every 6 months if you attend a certain amount of sessions. I think that's the way it works. So basically,
I would attend the gym.
So
you know what I would do? I would be in the grandstands. I would watch people exercise. That's what I would do.
So let's say if you can't afford a medical plan, right?
Okay.
And the government gives you a tax credit, so the catastrophe plan is zero now because you had enough credits. If you don't have money to pay for, where are you going to get $6,500 to lay out?
Well, you see, that plus on one of the talk shows this weekend, they just briefly brought up Obamacare, and I think they're even getting tired of talking about it. And one of the gentlemen who was being interviewed said, chances are most people haven't even paid a premium yet. If they just signed up, they haven't even paid a premium.
And if they don't pay the premium by today, their policies get canceled. And that's where you're going to see the honest truth of how many people actually signed up and how many actually people paid the premium. I know I signed up for a dental plan. They sent me one little note. I lost it. And I know I lost my dental plan because I don't even know what company it was. And I didn't really care.
And it's a shame because, many health insurance plans do not carry dental because dental is so expensive.
None of them carry dental. Everybody, it's an extra cost or a different company. There's no such thing as dental included, and there's no such thing as vision included. Except when I had my old plan that was cheap and like the worst plans, it was like $300-some. We had 1 or 2 dental visits a year for free, including x-rays and all that. Now you can't get that anymore.
Well, and it's also not surprising that many people simply don't want to go to the dentist. But let's face it, I was just telling your wife today that she happened to say something about the
You talked to
dentist.
my wife. Did I give you permission?
You were in the house. It was okay. Don't worry.
I don't remember talking.
We were fully clothed. Don't worry. In any event, I mean, don't fly off the handle. It's not good for your pressure. You may have to go see a doctor.
I don't like anybody talking to my wife.
All right, I won't.
I get
In the
all
future.
upset.
But you see, now you made me forget what I wanted to say.
When you were talking to my wife about dentists.
Yes. I told her, I said, of all the medical professionals, the dentists have the highest rate of suicide because everybody hates their dentist. Let's face it, you go into the office and what's the first thing you hear? You hear that lousy drill. No matter where you are, you hear that lousy drill, and that's enough to go,
Start cringing.
oh, I mean, I couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
My dentist used to say, excuse me, my dentist used to say, all right, I'm going to count to 3. You know how he counted to 3? He'd go, 1, 2, 3, and all that time he's drilling my tooth, and he must have hit a nerve because I must have hit the ceiling I don't know how many times. You know, I mean, and then, it hurts me more than it does you. You're full of it.
Well, now dentists use a lot more painkillers than I was.
It's true.
I will say that.
I couldn't wait for him to bring in the Novocaine.
Yeah.
And I said, just shoot me up. That's it.
Yeah, now, the last dentist I went to, I don't know how many shots she gave me. She goes, is this numb yet? And she'll hit me. Then she gets the hammer out. Is this numb yet?
The hammer and chisel, yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's numb now. I wouldn't know what she did. She could have pulled all my teeth out. She has me so numb. But it doesn't hurt.
Felix, pastime, baseball. Got to get back to it again.
Take me out to the ball game.
Yeah, let's listen to Harry Carey sing again.
It's not Harry Carey.
Well, yeah, I could lie, can I?
You want to know who it really is?
I don't know who it is.
Billy Joel.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, when he was at Shea, correct?
I don't know. Let's listen.
Oh, his last concert.
Let's see if that's
The
actually.
final concert at Shea.
Even the baseball song is boring and slow, just like the sport.
You know what the funny thing is? That a lot of the people at this concert had to look at the words. They put it up on the Jumbotron.
Ball game.
By the way, if anybody out there knows what the Met score was today, now I'm not a Met fan, but I know they played this afternoon. If you happen to know what the Met score was, why don't you come into the chat room and give us the final score, or better yet, call up. I know that my daughter didn't get much sleep, so I know that she's not calling up today, and she wouldn't anyway. She would probably go into the chat room, but she's a big Yankee fan. She and I are both waiting for opening day tomorrow. So's my friend Ira. In fact, he happened to put on Facebook over the weekend, whatever happened to opening day? He said, that's why they call it opening day. You're supposed to play a day game, and the Yankees are actually playing a night game tomorrow, which is very surprising.
You get a better audience at night than during the day.
Well, but still, and then there was somebody else who I went to junior high school with said he remembers a time when he and another friend skipped out of junior high school in the afternoon because we used to be able to go home for lunch, I remember. And he said he and another friend skipped out and went to the old Yankee Stadium because right now you're talking about, let's say we were 12 or 13, so you're in the 8th grade, all right? And he's my age now, so you're talking about like 52 years later. He took the train up to the Bronx and they attended Old Timers game. I know some teachers that used to take off religiously every time it was opening game for the Yankees. Many people did that.
Not, well, I don't know. Maybe some people still do it. As I said, I was never much of a fan of baseball. Like I said, the World Series, I'll usually have a little interest in.
I'll tell you, baseball used to be such a famous pastime that my father invented a game called baseball with cards, and every card meant something, whether it was a strikeout, whether it was a walk, base on balls, a single, double, triple, home run. And not only did I teach it to my daughter Robin, Stacy wasn't too interested, I don't think. But I taught it to Robin, my younger daughter. But I used to bring in the rules, and when I first started teaching back in 71, 72, 73, etc., I used to hand the rules out to the kids. And the last week of school, when no work was ever getting done anyway, I tell them to bring a deck of cards, and we used to play baseball with cards. And it was a lot of fun. Kids had a great time. You know, school was ending within a couple of days, so nothing was really being done. Textbooks had already been collected, but they really enjoyed that.
I don't even know why they keep those few days open.
Well, you know, because if they shorten the school year by those number of days, then somebody would come up and say, gee, you know, what would have been let's say that Monday and Tuesday, let's say it ended on Thursday, and then, as you say, they take the 2 days away, Thursday and Wednesday, somebody would say, well, why even open up schools for Monday and Tuesday? Why not just make it end on a Friday already? But then the state says you have to have a certain number of days, which the city, I know in New York, being a city teacher, we always had 187 days. And even some schools out here have more than 180. But all it says in the state bylaws is that a school must be open for 180 days. Because a lot of schools, come Memorial Day, they give them an extra day or two if they haven't had snow days, you know.
Well, you know, I think, I don't know, aren't some places not trying to get kids to go to school year-round?
There has been a push. They talk about, especially with the lower test scores that the students have, they were talking about an overcrowding of schools. They were talking about staggering a summer vacation so that not everybody is off in July and August. Some people may be off the month of December. Some people may be off the month of January and go to school through the summer. You know, it depends. Or cut down the summer vacation by 1 month, give everybody off in July and have them come back in August, you know, lengthening the school day. That's something we could talk about too.
The problem with that is, I think, is especially in the New York schools, it's too hot. Well, no air conditioning.
Right, because that's right. The schools, many of the schools, only the newer schools have air conditioning. Okay, outside of New York, most, if not all, of the schools have air conditioning, so it wouldn't be so bad. But you have to think about something else also. The day camps and sleepaway camps have a lobby. Okay, and they would, and travel agencies, because many people travel during the summer.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, many people take their vacations during the summer for that reason, because they don't have to pull their kids out of school. School is closed.
Yeah.
So
staggering the school year probably wouldn't be bad. You could have a winter month off and a summer month off.
Well, you know, you think about on the other side of the world in Australia, you know, they're on the other side of the equator, so they have the opposite weather that we have. When we have cold weather in January and February, you know, that's their summer months.
Right.
And I don't believe they have any school then. I believe they go to school in July and August, which would be their winter months.
I don't know. But it would make sense. I mean, it used to be the reason why you took off school in the summers so the kids could help on the farm. That was the original reason for it. You know, but obviously there aren't that many farmers anymore.
Yeah, but don't you wake up early and feed the chickens and milk the cows?
In my dreams, yeah.
Think about the poor farmer, the poor American farmer, or not even American farmer, but if you have a dairy farm and you're raising cows, a cow produces milk every day, 365 days a year. If you want to go away, you have to have somebody or who's either knowledgeable with the machinery so they can hook up the cow's udders and milk the cow. Cows have to be milked 3 times a day because there's a limit to how much milk they can hold. And they're making milk all the time, But I don't know how this gets to be spoken about when we're talking about baseball. Oh, I know why, because a lot of the old players used to come from a farm.
Yeah.
I remember Eno Slaughter, his name was Country Boy, because he was brought up in a rural part of the United States. And I remember my dad telling me for the first time we went to an old-timers game, and Eno Slaughter was there, and my dad yells out, "Country Boy!" And that was his nickname.
Well, a lot of the country, United States, used to be farmland. It wasn't industrialized in the beginning like it is now.
It's true.
Everything just changes, and the earth revolves and keeps revolving with every revolution.
Yeah, the only thing that's not evolving is our show. I mean, we've been on the air for over 45 minutes already. Come on, folks. I tell you one thing. I only have about 15, unless somebody calls up, I only have about 15 more minutes in me.
Usually the tradition says in our show that if we don't get a caller within the first hour, there is no second hour.
That's very true. We only have one person who usually takes that to heart and winds up calling with about 3 seconds left.
Yeah.
It's happened more than once.
Oh, you talking about the Dapper Dan?
Dapper Dan, yes.
Yeah. Well, Dapper Dan sometimes listens to our show, and he likes to hear us struggling, having problems because we have nothing else to say.
And then he becomes our savior, and he calls up at the last minute.
Yeah, he's the hero of the night. But anyway, that's something neither here nor there. Phone number 646-595-3275. Thank you very much. I was watching the screen get dark, and my mind went blank the same time as the screen was getting dark.
I know, that's a killer when that happens.
Yeah, because you never know if something went dark or the show went off.
If the producer drops the cue cards and they're out of sync, or if you're talking about one thing and all of a sudden you start talking about something else, it's because he's got the cue cards all wrong.
Well, we got our cue cards all wrong every time we have a show.
Every time the subject changes.
Oops, there goes another. Anyway, let's go see what we got here. Talking about farms.
Please, no Austin Powers.
That's our farm, our chickens. And
people don't understand that, you actually have these animals live.
Oh, yeah.
I have them all live, baby.
I don't know if she was making a comment about a baseball game that she saw or,
No, she said we have our animals live. She says, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I tell you what, I am going to take a coffee break and put up coffee. Would you like another cup? Or do we have? Or you want the...
I'll try the other stuff.
Okay. Hold on, folks.
I could always...
try something new.
Yeah. Anyway, well, Mark goes on his way, on his duty of...
It's my job.
Doing his job. I will sneak some interesting little music for you. This is what I call the coffee club lounge music, where everybody just sits around, has their cup of coffee, relaxes, and waits till Mark comes back with some fresh coffee. The coffee of the day today is mocha coffee, and the reason for that is we ran out of all different kinds of coffee, and nobody would ever drink the mocha coffee if there's something else. But since there is nothing else, I'm going to make the sacrifice and have it. I hope you realize this kind of music usually just relaxes me completely, almost puts me to sleep. And whatever audience we have left, this is when they're all just cutting off the show, I'm sure. Thank God that this show does not depend on the live audience. As I've said many times before, a very small portion of the audience actually listens to the show live. It is a blog, and people listen to the blog when they have a moment. You can tune into Blog Talk Radio. We also broadcast on Spreaker. You can also find us on iTunes. Just go to podcast, type in the Coffee Club, and you can hear any of our pods of the past, but they are never live. And I don't feel like I'm alive right now. And if you can't hear me, and you can, you know what?
There is no heaven, there is no hell, there is only this world and its dark reflection.
Now, if anybody knows what that really means,
which of the two worlds we are.
Excuse me, if anybody really knows what that means, give us a call. We'd be interested, because we don't know what it's our favorite recording that we have here, our favorite sound effect, but we have no idea what it really means.
Which one?
Mark is looking at me, so I'm going to replay it. And Mark, you explain it to me.
Heaven,
is this my favorite?
Yes.
There is no hell. There is only this world and its dark reflection. And we do not know in which of the two worlds we are.
Well, actually, I think that's a great saying for somebody who's coming off an LSD trip, basically. Yeah. You don't know which world you're in.
Well, maybe this is, a lot of people don't believe in heaven or hell. They believe your heaven and hell is on earth.
I've heard that, yes.
And maybe the dark reflections is the hell.
Do you believe? I don't know. Do you believe?
In what?
Heaven or hell?
I'd like to believe in heaven. I don't really want to know about hell too much.
Well, if you believe in one, it only stands to reason that you would believe in the other. I mean, unless, somebody who does not lead a good life and somebody who takes advantage of people, Yeah, one would assume that that person would not be going to heaven now. There could be a purgatory.
Yeah.
See, in the Greek mythology, when you would travel the river Styx, when you die, Charon, Charon, is the guy in charge of the boat who takes souls from one world into purgatory, and then basically you stay there for a while, and it's determined where you go, whether you go into heaven or, I would assume, Hades, because in many stories, heroes or demigods, as they were called, would make a trip into Hades to try to free some princess or something along the way,
Yeah. Well, let me ask you now. Until I showed to you in writing, you really didn't think there was that the Jewish religion.
That's right. In fact, I just glanced at it the other day. You're 100% right. I didn't know whether Jewish people believed in a heaven, in an afterlife, actually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think that there is one, only because, as I've said before, it makes death a little bit more palatable.
Of course.
It's easier to accept one's death or a person's death, a loved one's death, if you know that that's not really the end of existence, that possibly they start over again. What can I say?
At times I think that we are all living in hell right now.
Well, we sort of make our own heaven or hell, depending upon how you want to look at it, by decisions that we make.
Yeah.
If we all had hindsight, we would all make the right decisions. Sometimes decisions wind up working to our advantage, and unfortunately, many times it works to our detriment.
Well, listen.
If you had hindsight,
if we all had hindsight, we'd have eyes in our asses. So there is no such thing as hindsight.
Yeah, there is, except, look at what we're doing now. We're sitting down, so if that's the case, then we're sitting on our eyes, aren't we?
Because there is no... Listen, hindsight is knowledge, what we've learned, basically.
And
but we can't go back.
To change, I know.
And our kids will not listen to us.
Well, think about your parents giving... I don't know if your parents ever gave you advice. Even my parents, I honestly have to say, I had a great childhood. My parents never applied any pressure to any of my two sisters or myself. They would give us advice, but they would let us make our own mistakes, because the bottom line is, the problem with youth, Mark Twain says, is that it's wasted on the young. That they don't have the experiences in life to make proper choices.
That's what I'm saying. We do. We can make a lot of choices. But again, as I said, the children don't really listen to us. When you see somebody making a mistake, and it's an obvious mistake, it doesn't matter what you say, they're going to make the mistake.
And Felix, it's similar to children, let's say children of privilege, children whose parents, and obviously by that I usually mean the father, because in most cases the mother wasn't working, but let's even say parents, mother and father, were successful in the choices that they made in business, and they set up their children, and their children never really had to work for anything because it was always given to them. I had a friend at one time who I met during the time of my first marriage, whose father was in general contracting, securities, meaning, locks and everything. And every 3 years, his father would get a new car, and he'd give the old car to his son. And it's like, I remember my friends saving money to buy some piece of junk when they turned 18, but they were so proud that it was their car. And this guy is driving around in a nice, he would be, after I met him after I was married, driving around in a nice car. It's like when you go to some affluent school districts where the students are driving better cars than their teachers.
All the students have convertibles and nice cars. The old days, all souped up.
I remember when I worked in the bank, and a young girl who was, I think she was furnishing her first apartment. And she came in to get a teller's check for like $2,500. She said she's buying her first stereo. I said, oh, it must be really nice, $2,500. She says, no, that's the down payment. Okay, now this was in Great Neck. That's the down payment. I remember the first stereo system that I had. It had a turntable and 2 speakers, and I was happy with that.
Yeah, I always used to like to see the ones with who's on sale, which is the open box one.
Exactly.
I couldn't tell the difference. My ears are not that good that I could really tell the difference. And most people can't tell the difference. It's not, all the kids do is blast the heck out of it, and you know what? It's hard to tell. To me, it's hard to tell the difference. I'm sure some people can. But, to spend $2,000-3,000 on a stereo system and then surround TV,
Well, don't forget, that $2,500 was only the down payment.
Exactly.
I think the bottom line is, it cost us something like $5,000-6,000.
Yeah, sure. That's only the down payment. It's got to be expensive piece of hardware. We have a show here which is broadcasting, and we'll use equipment that the kids will be throwing out probably.
It's true. It's true. Here I thought you invested so much money, and now the truth comes out, Felix.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, your headsets, which we don't really use anymore as headsets. Actually, we only use it for headsets because the microphones are too shabby. Or, it doesn't matter. But
Well, I've gone 3 minutes over my limit. It's 10:03.
we've been broadcasting now for 63 minutes and 34 seconds.
Well,
And we haven't got a phone call.
I think we're going to go back one more time to,
Baseball?
discussing America's pastime. I think that part of the reason that baseball may be fading as America's pastime is that today's young people play more sports. Okay? Talking about outside of the city, you have soccer, you have basketball, you have ice hockey. Okay? You've always had football. And with more and more kids participating in more than just one sport, there's a limit to how you could spread out your time. I remember my father telling me when my younger son, my oldest son decided that, sports wasn't really for him. And I could understand that. You try it, and if you don't like it, you just don't continue. But he tried it for a couple of years. He didn't like it. My younger son played Little League. My wife and I were involved. I was the coach. She was the manager. I used to make up, my lineups and switch around positions so everybody got a chance to play a good position. Then, as I said, he also played lacrosse for a year. But then he really got into ice hockey. When he was 6, he played ice hockey for the first time, and he played ice hockey through age 17. And we used to go from ice hockey at 6 o'clock in the morning, because that's when the rink would open. He'd have his practice then. He'd change and get dressed to his soccer shorts, soccer outfit, because we had soccer after that. And then after soccer, he would change in the car to his baseball uniform. And my dad would say, how do you do all this? when do you rest? And I would tell him, Dad, got plenty of time to rest when I die. That used to be my line. Plenty of time to rest when I die.
Well, I don't know. To me, that seems a little much, but what are you going to do? You're a good daddy.
Well, my wife and I tried to be. You know, I mean, thank goodness he wasn't on a travel team, because I know those people, they really didn't have time for anything else, because they traveled on Saturday and Sunday. Sometimes they traveled Friday and Sunday, Friday night. And when I say travel, I don't mean to another town on Long Island. I mean they went to Connecticut, or they went to Jersey for a game. You know, that's a lot of driving.
Well, with soccer, you only had really one day that you go on a travel.
Sunday.
Sometimes Saturdays. But then you have tournaments, and usually they're out of town
Right,
for a whole weekend.
right.
And, either you get up 5 in the morning and drive out there in the morning, or stay out there. And, those were tough. And then in soccer, they had a winter schedule too. They played indoors. Same thing. They had the winter tournaments. It gets tough on a travel team. And then when my son stopped doing that, he started playing basketball. So I started coaching basketball.
Well, folks, I don't know about Felix, but I'm pretty much talked out about this. Maybe we'll play one more time. We'll play "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," Billy Joel, and then we'll just sign off. The dogs maybe they want to watch the game.
Well, you see, when you were gone, I played you one more time already.
So you didn't really do all that talking when I was gone.
I talked the whole time. I just happened to have music while I was talking.
Well, so then we won't play it one more time, because I guess you might, for the one or two listeners out there, you might be tired of it. So I think we're going to get ready to sign off. So
That's for all the listeners that actually afterwards listen on the podcast. We really don't want to bore them. So for their sake also, we're not going to play it again. And instead, we're going to say, good night, Mark.
good night, Felix, and ladies and gentlemen.